You have seen her face 1,000 times. High cheekbones, a long, elegant neck, and that iconic blue crown. She is the Mona Lisa of the ancient world, a symbol of perfect beauty that has captivated humanity for over a century. But look closer at that limestone face, and you will find a story that isn't about beauty. At all, it is a story of deception, a religious revolution that nearly destroyed an empire, and a cold case mystery involving a missing body that has baffled detectives for 3,000 years. While millions admire her statue in Berlin today, almost no one talks about the dark reality of how she got there, or the terrifying secret of what actually happened to the woman who ruled the world. The history books tell you she was a queen, but the evidence suggests she was something far more dangerous. To understand the mystery, we have to go back to a cold winter day in 1912. The setting is the desolate sands of Amarna, a place that locals avoided, calling it a cursed city. A German archaeological team, led by a man named Ludwig Borchardt, was digging through the rubble of what used to be an artist's workshop. For weeks, they had found nothing but broken pottery and dust. But on December 6th, a workman's pickaxe hit something different. As they brushed away the sand, a flash of color emerged, a vibrant blue that hadn't seen the sun in millennia. Borchardt later wrote in his diary that when the face was fully revealed, he was It wasn't just a statue. It was the most realistic human face ever found in antiquity. He wrote 3 words. Suddenly, we had in our hands the most alive Egyptian work of art. You cannot describe it with words. You must see it. But this discovery wasn't just a triumph. It was the beginning of a massive lie. Before we get to the scandal of the statue, we have to understand the chaos that birthed it. Nefertiti wasn't living in a normal time. She and her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten, were the most hated couple in Egyptian history. In a shocking move, they had overthrown thousands of years of tradition, banning the worship of the old gods like Amen and forcing the entire empire to bow to a single Detitha sun disk, Aten. They abandoned the capital of Thebes and built a new, glittering city in the middle of the desert called Ak. It was a golden city of wide avenues and open-air temples. But to the rest of Egypt, it was a blasphemy. Nefertiti wasn't just standing by her husband's side during this radical overhaul. She was the driving force. The walls of this new city depicted scenes that shocked the ancient world, scenes that hinted Nefertiti held a power no woman was supposed to have. In almost every depiction of Egyptian royalty, the queen is shown much smaller than the pharaoh, standing by his knee, submissive and supportive. But in Amarna, the rules were broken. Nefertiti was carved at the same scale as her husband. Even more shocking, there are reliefs showing her alone, driving her own chariot, and most incredibly smiting the enemies of Egypt with a mace. This was a pose strictly reserved for the pharaoh himself. This wasn't a queen consort. This was a warrior ruler. Her name literally meant, "The beautiful one has come," but her actions screamed absolute authority. She was the high priestess, the co-ruler, and perhaps the only person Akhenaten trusted. But just as her power reached its absolute peak, something strange happened. The timeline of history suddenly goes dark. In the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, Nefertiti vanishes. Her name stops appearing on monuments. She is gone from the family portraits. For decades, historians assumed the worst, that a plague swept through the city, claiming her life, or that she fell out of favor and was exiled to a northern palace to die alone. It was a tragic end to a glorious life. But recent evidence suggests that this tragedy was actually the greatest disguise in history. The theory is that Nefertiti didn't die. Instead, she was promoted. Evidence suggests she abandoned her name and her gender, taking on the title of a male pharaoh named Smenkhare, to rule as her husband's equal, and eventually his successor. This theory changes everything. It implies that the woman we see in the Berlin Museum wasn't just a beauty icon, but the king of Egypt who ruled during the empire's most turbulent hour. Yet, if she was so powerful, where is she? We have the mummies of almost every major pharaoh of the New Kingdom, including her husband and her likely stepson, but Nefertiti is missing. Some believe she was buried in a secret chamber behind the walls of King Tut's tomb, waiting to be found. Others believe a mummy was destroyed by the priests who returned to power after her death, tearing her limb from limb to punish her for the heresy of the sun god. But while her body remains lost, Her face was about to become the center of an international crime. We have to return to 1913, a few months after Borchardt found that stunning bust. According to the law at the time, any artifacts found had to be split 50/50ths between the foreign excavators and the Egyptian government. A meeting was set up to divide the spoils. This is where the story turns into a heist movie. Borchardt knew that if the Egyptian inspector saw the true quality of Nefertiti's bust, he would never let it leave the country. So, Borchardt devised a plan. He reportedly didn't clean the bust properly, leaving it covered in a layer of grime and mud. He packed it into a box with less impressive items and, crucially, he listed it on the official register not as a limestone masterpiece, but as a painted gypsum bust of a princess. The trick worked. The Egyptian inspector, perhaps tired or distracted, glanced at the dirty item described as cheap plaster and waved it through, choosing a different pile of artifacts for Cairo instead. Borchardt had successfully pulled off the greatest art theft in history. He smuggled the queen out of Egypt and into Berlin, but he knew what he had done. He was so worried about the Egyptian government realizing the fraud that he kept the statue hidden in a private collection for over 10 years. It wasn't until 1924 that the bust was finally revealed to the public, and Egypt immediately demanded it back. But by then, it was too late. The Germans refused, and Nefertiti became a hostage of politics. Her journey didn't end in a museum display case. During the horrors of World War II, Nefertiti was on the move again. As bombs rained down on Berlin, Hitler, who was reportedly obsessed with the statue and called it a unique masterpiece, ordered it to be moved to a fortified flak tower. But even that wasn't safe enough. In the final days of the war, the bust was transported deep underground into a salt mine in Thuringia, sitting in the cold dark alongside tons of Nazi gold and stolen art. It was only in 1945 that American troops discovered the mine and rescued the queen from oblivion. Today, Nefertiti sits in the Neuss Museum in Berlin, insured for nearly $400 million. She stares out at millions of tourists every year, her expression unreadable. She is an Egyptian queen held in a German glass case, a symbol of beauty that was obtained through an ugly lie. Egypt continues to fight for her return, claiming she was taken illegally, while Germany insists she was acquired fairly. But beyond the politics and the lawsuits, the true mystery remains. We have her face, but we don't have her story. Somewhere in the sands of Egypt, the rest of Nefertiti is waiting. Was she the victim of a purge, or the king who ruled it all? Until we find her tomb, the beautiful one remains silent, keeping her greatest secrets to herself.